So let's fine tune this and introduce some more variation. So pretty much all particles are behaving the same way. And it'll be very interesting if we introduce some exceptions, some special particles that actually have either a bigger size and or a stronger light emission value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the actual particles, and here on the set attributes, let's work on this a bit more. So I'm going to say that to keep things more organized and easier to kind of debug, let's create another point triangle called create exceptions. Create exceptions. And on this create exceptions, we're going to use the ID of each one of these particles to isolate a few of them, very few of them, okay? So the idea is if we generate a random number based on the particle ID, and that random number is bigger than 0.9999, let's just do this, 9999, let's do something, and let's create a few new attributes. First thing we could do is we can actually just make them bigger. That's one thing we can do right away. Scale times equals, let's create a fit01, and let's use the fit a random number, again based on the ID plus something, and let's establish minimum and maximum multiplier for the scale. So let's say 1.2 and 2. And 2. Let's keep it like this. 1.2 and 2. So these special ones, we are changing the p scale of them. And we also want them to be brighter. So let's say we'll create a new attribute called myEmit. And we'll say that myEmit is going to be times equals for, let's copy this, Control C, Control V, we'll change the seed and we'll change the multipliers here. Let's say 4 to 20 times more brighter than the other ones. The other ones we'll establish here on the set attributes. We'll create that attribute right away. So let's say f my emit. For all particles, this will be equal to 1. But then we will have our exceptions. And those exceptions will be bigger and they will be brighter. We may also kind of, if you want to introduce some variation on the particles that are not special, we can add an else here and just say that f at my emit is going to be times equals, let's introduce some variation here as well. Control C, Control V. Again, changing the seed, and let's say the regular ones will be multiplied by 1 or 2. And now we need to introduce that value here as well. So it's another scalar. It's called myEmit. And we will use this to actually multiply the color. So vector multiply, let's put it here. We will multiply the value that's being fed into the emission color. So you can either increase the intensity of your emission by increasing the emission weight, or you can also just increase the intensity, the value of your color. And that's pretty much what we're doing. So let's see what this gives us. I'm gonna file, save, and let's render. Okay, so we now have some more variation on the brightness of the particles. They're all brighter, that's for sure. And we do have some of these special ones. I'm not sure if we We may have too many of those, um, but I think we'll be okay. So now it's just a matter of adjusting these values, namely the opacity values and the intensity values. So I'm gonna do some experiments and I'll be right back with the final values. It's just a matter of testing and rendering, changing values and rendering. So it's not really interesting for you to be looking at this in real time. So I'll be right back as soon as I have the final values that I'm going to be using for the render.